I get a lot of calls from single moms and emails and texts that say, Kris, how did you get into the business? How did you get into ministry the way you're doing things? Well, it just didn't happen overnight. I got called by God to do what I'm doing. When I was in my 20s, I just really enjoyed the community that I was involved with, the church I was involved with. I got involved with a singles ministry called Solo, Singles Offering Life to Others. And I loved being in it. Now, of course, at first I was still struggling in my walk with the Lord. I had 1 foot in and 1 foot out, and I nearly hugged the wall for almost a year. And for those people who know me, they go, that's not possible. You talk way too much. But back then, I wasn't as much of a talker. I wasn't as confident as I am today because my confidence is in Christ. So back then, my confidence was more in myself, and I wasn't so sure of myself all the time. And so I hugged the walls for a long time, and then finally I started getting involved. And I remember someone coming up to me one day and said, Kris, would you possibly help us with a retreat that we're going to be doing, a conference? And at the time I had my own design business and graphics, and I said, sure, I'd love to help you, because that was something that I knew how to do. I didn't know a lot about God. I didn't know a lot about ministry. I didn't know a lot about leading anybody in ministry, but I definitely knew about marketing. So they asked me to help them. I said, sure. And they said, well, we need a banner done. And I said, well, when do you need the banner done? And they said, in about 11 months. I said, 11 months? Well, why don't you give me a call back in 10 and a half, 11 months, and I'll get that banner for you. They said, well, here's the situation. You're going to be on a team, and we meet every week. I'm like, you meet every week for a banner? Like, yeah, we meet every week for a banner. They go, that's okay. We can find someone else to do it. I'm like, no, I want to do the banner. Because at the time it was all about me, and I wanted them to know that I did that banner. What was great is that they figured out how to reach me where I was. They didn't try to make me to somebody that I wasn't. They saw potential in me. They knew I had talent that God had given me, but yet I was still very young in my walk with God. And so I said, okay, I'll come to the meetings every week for a banner that you don't need for 11 months. Great. They said, one other thing. I'm like, what? They said, well, we do a devotion too. A devotion? They said, yep. Every week. For a banner. Oh my, I got to study the Bible like every week. I'm like, I don't know. Well, that's okay. We can find somebody else to do the banner. No, I want to do the banner because then everybody will see it and they know it's me, and that's like really good. And and I said, okay, all right, I'll come every week and do a devotion for a banner that you don't need for almost a year. You know what was neat, guys? Is they didn't know if I was going to last. They didn't know if I'd come every week. I mean, that was the chance you take in ministry when you're doing singles ministry. Well, when you're doing all ministry. God has called us to disciple. God has called us to reach out to others. And we're not responsible for the result, but we are responsible to go and reach people for Christ. So they reached me. They found something that I had in common with them, something they needed that I could do. And they took a risk to see what would happen. What was great, guys, is that not only did I end up doing the banner, but I ended up doing all the marketing. That the team would be something that I desperately needed. I needed to learn that I wasn't an island, that I wasn't by myself, it wasn't all about me, and that I could rely on other people, that I needed to rely on other people, and that I needed to learn what it was to be on a team. Some of us are not good at that. Some of us are very doers. We want to do everything ourselves because you know what? All we have is to rely on us. Well, at least we'll get it done. But in order to do it God's way, you need to be on a team, just like the disciples were on a team. We're all going to have gifts and talents. Some are going to be extroverts and some are going to be introverts. Some are going to be get her done and some are going to be, come on, please help me get it done. Some of them are going to talk all the time, and some of them are going to be your prayer warriors, and they're going to be more quiet. But we need all parts of the team to get it to work. So I was a part of the team. From that, I ended up being one of the main leaders. And from that, God called me into ministry. Baby steps, little steps. I remember I was about 29 years old, and I had been given the Bible study Experiencing God. Some of you guys are familiar with that, by Henry Blackaby. And it was the first kind of long study. I'd never done a study like that before. And I remember on day 4 of week 1, I just started crying because it was really making me look at my life and make me make some changes. And it was hard. It would be 4 months before I could pick that book back up, that Bible study. But when I did, it was life-changing. And I began to see why I was on this earth. That my purpose in life was not what I did for a living, or being a mom, or being an aunt. I'm a really good aunt. My purpose wasn't my job, although I really enjoyed my job, and I enjoyed being a designer, and I enjoyed how it made me feel of taking care of a client. My purpose wasn't being a good daughter or a good friend. It wasn't in where I lived or how big of a house I had. My purpose was a relationship with Jesus Christ that glorified Him. Because the enemy has a relationship with Jesus Christ. It has to glorify Him. And now that relationship, a relationship with others, to bring them to Christ. When I figured that out, life changed. And then I began to think, I want something more. I want something more than what I have. I want more of Him in my life. I want more direction in my life. I want to understand, how do I work out my purpose? So all of a sudden, then my job became about how to reach people for Christ in my job. And then where I lived, I'm like, no wonder I live in that little house and I've lived in it for so long. I'm supposed to reach my neighbors. Wow. No wonder I live in the city that I lived in instead of maybe the city I wanted to live in. It's because of where God was putting me to do the ministry He'd given me. So when someone asked me again, Kris, how did you get into this? Well, it starts with the first step of obedience. To say, Isaiah 6:8, just send me, Lord. Just send me. If you let the Lord do that in your life, as a single adult, as a single mom, as anyone, who knows where He can take you? Just look at me. I would have never thought God would bring me to where He's brought me. All way back then, when someone said, hey, can you do a banner? Like, sure. So when you need it. 11 months. Oh, wow. What a journey it's been.